Hello and welcome to Sproutlogic Gardening. My name's Mike. Well, it's truly an exciting time in the garden. It might be extremely cold out. It's about 20 today, Fahrenheit. But we're going to unveil our first plant of the season. And I know you're probably wondering, what plant could we possibly be unveiling when it's 20 degrees out in the middle of February? Well, let's find out. All right, so what's in the box? Here we go. What is it, you're probably asking, and why does it have flowers on it when it's February 20 degrees? This is a pink heather. The variety is actually Erica. So this is one of the only plants that flower during this time of year. In fact, they typically flower in the wintertime, late winter usually. There are other varieties that will flower sometimes in the spring in other places. But I got this one specifically to add a burst of color and to give my pollinator something to mess with these crazy temperatures we're having. One day it's 20, next day it's 70 degrees. So you just never know. So I'm going to set this down for now, but we'll talk about this plant. So a couple things to note with heathers. Number one, they need acidic soil. This is incredibly important. And this is probably the number one thing that kills them. Regular garden soil will not cut it. Another thing, do not fertilize them. They do not like fertilizer. They basically want to live in a pretty much acidic kind of, we'll call it a bare soil. A little bit's okay here and there, but not all the time, and definitely not a very rich soil. That'll be a problem for them. Something else to consider. Now, it is a tough plant. It lives outside in the winter, and it comes from basically places like the Highlands of Ireland or Scotland. So really tough conditions. Also arguably pretty damp, and that's something else to note. They like to be damp, not soaked. In other words, they don't want to be sitting in water. They like to have their soil damp, and that's about it. If you overwater them, you'll kill them really quickly. Now, in my particular area here, I'm in zone 7B/8A. During the fall, spring, and winter, I could probably keep this outside. And they do require full sun, by the way. And what I mean by full sun here, keeping it outside, would be like somewhere on my porch. Totally fine. Or maybe even out over here somewhere on the ground. Now, I am going to be putting this in the container. I have to repot it because the current container is way too small. But they do enjoy containers that are 12 inches wide by about 12 inches deep. That's really good for this type of plant. But back to that whole consideration about the sun and the zones. So basically during summer where I'm at, I cannot have it like basically out directly in the sun. Summer would obliterate this plant, and that's something you need to consider depending on where you're at. So this is something that I'd want to move basically against the side of my house once we hit early summer, because my garden, remember, is east facing. So the sun will come up behind me over here and go over the crest of the house probably by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a lot of intense sun, and frankly would just burn this thing to a crisp. So we have to keep that in mind. Well, I guess we should probably get started on getting this repotted. Okay, so we're going to get this little guy repotted, but really quick, I want to point out a couple things like I mentioned in the previous shot there, which was the soil. I actually went with Coast of Maine, organic and natural. This is acid-loving plant soil that is incredibly important for this plant. Again, it does not like any soil that's not acidic, and it's also kind of low in nutrients, which is good as well. I also have some perlite. I have to make sure that the bottom half of this is very well drained. And here's my pot. I wasn't kidding about the size. It has to be pretty big, so 12 by 12 basically. So I have to make sure that the bottom half is what I'm going to basically do is put some soil, and the bottom 1/3 add some perlite and make sure it's really, really heavy with the perlite so the drainage is good towards there. And then I have some pine needle that's going to basically be used to mulch the top. This is really helpful in the summer. It wants to remain damp, not soaked. And in the summer, that's a major problem. Obviously, with the sun beating down on it, it's going to dry out really quickly. So we should probably start with the perlite and the soil here. Now you're noticing I'm not wearing any gloves. I don't typically wear them. I'd recommend most people probably do to be safe. You can, well, if you have an open cut or something on your finger, you can get an infection. That's not good for anybody. So I'm going to fill the bottom part here with this. Okay. And I'll show you basically where I'm at. About the bottom third is roughly filled. This soil is really unique. I've never used this type of soil. Acid lovers, it seems to be, I don't know, pretty fluffy, heavy almost. At the same time, that's weird to say in the same sentence. So I went really heavy on the perlite, and of course, gotta love perlite with its blast of white dust. I'm going to mix it by hand. Let's see if I can tilt that a little bit towards you so you can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, it's all right. Show you. So this bottom part is really, really heavy and perlite to make sure that its roots aren't just sitting in here soaked. That would be really, really bad. Okay. So you can tell, pretty heavy, right, with the perlite. So I like to sometimes set the pot in there to get kind of a measurement. So I need some more on the bottom there. Another thing to mention with heathers, the top of their root ball likes to be exposed. You do not want to put the soil directly up against this plant, up against the branches. That would definitely be a problem for it as well. Okay. I think we're getting close now. Let's take a look. Yeah, we're good. So we want to tease this out, and this is going to be tough considering this poor guy is frozen. Really tough, actually. So this can happen. Go to repot a plant, especially if it's cold out. It is completely frozen solid. So I'm going to actually have to take this and probably set it in some warm water, really. Maybe not. I was going to say warm water is a good trick. But I think I might be able to tease it out. Yeah, there we go. Solid rock, basically. Look at that. Now that's not good either. We don't want that. Which tells you that pot was way too small and a problem. Again, tough plants, but not invincible. So I'm going to actually use its pot to maybe scoop some soil up. Make it easier to fill the edges in. And I'm just going to actually fill it up right to where the line was previously, because that's pretty darn close. Now I'll spare you the time it takes for me to fill this up. The next and final step before I give it a very light watering, the pine needles I talked about. So important here, this is just to give it basically a little bit of shielding in the summer and a little bit in the winter too, arguably. You notice I'm not really putting it directly up against the plant. It's more on the outer part of it. And I'm not going super thick either. You don't need to like really heavily apply this, right? Now these needles, I'm going to have to move some of them around because they're kind of close. And I'll clean it up. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it does have to serve a purpose and get the job done here. That's good enough. I'll do a little cleanup on that. But I think that'll work. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts about heathers in the comments below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. This really helps my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Take it easy.